This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week we preview the NESCAC championships for the rowing teams. Plus, senior captain Preston Haugh capped off his Bates golf career on a high note, and the track and field teams are in full gear. That's coming up on the Bates Bobcast. The lacrosse teams wrapped up their seasons last week, with the women and men nearly pulling off big rallies against their respective opponents. The women hosted number 8 nationally ranked Colby Friday night and fell behind by 10 goals. But the Bobcats rallied and cut the deficit to 4 with 12:59 remaining in the game. Colby then hung on to defeat Bates 14-10. The men's lacrosse team visited Connecticut College on Saturday and found themselves down by 5 in the fourth quarter. Bates rallied to score the final 4 goals of the contest, including 3 from junior Jackson Sell. But the Camels hung on for a 13-12 win over the Bobcats. The women finished the abbreviated season with a record of 2-3, and the men finished 1-3. Softball also wrapped up its season over the weekend, with the Bobcats dropping a pair of games at Bowdoin and 1 to Trinity before bouncing back in the season finale to defeat the Bantams 11-2 in 5 innings. Senior Payton Buxton tossed a complete game for Bates to earn the win in her final appearance in the circle as a Bobcat.
Trinity came out really hot in the first game. I knew that I was going to have to give it my all in the circle to shut them down the next game. And everyone on the team just really, really wanted it because it was the last game of the season, senior day. You know, you could just tell that there was a certain intensity going into the second game where everyone just really wanted to win.
How much are you watching the trendy hitters? You probably knew coming in you were going to pitch the game too. So how much were you watching those trendy hitters in game one? What were some things you picked up perhaps?
Well, I noticed in the first game, they were hitting a lot through the 5-6 hole to the left side of the field. So I was talking to my catcher in the bullpen before game 2. I was saying, let's go outside, outside, outside until they make us come inside.
And obviously that worked. It was a complete game, 5-inning victory for Bates. Any particular moment stand out for you in the circle that, you kind of remember from that game?
One thing that I remember specifically was a ball hit to the outfield. Trinity hit a ball to the outfield, and our outfielder threw home, and our first baseman cut off the throw and threw back to second to get a runner out on the tag. And it just really fired up the whole team. It was huge. It really pumped us all up.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit take us back to when you were looking for colleges. You're from Middlebury, Vermont. What made Bates kind of the place for you when you first decided to come to school here?
Well, first of all, I really knew that I wanted to come to a NESCAC for the academics, the good athletics. But when I stepped onto the Bates campus for a tour, I don't know how to explain it, but I just kind of knew, you know what I mean? It just felt like the right place for me.
And then your first year, obviously a great season for the Bobcats. I mean, how fondly do you look back on that, that rookie season for you, if you will?
Oh, that was a great year, really great introduction into the program. We had a lot of fun, a lot of wins, played well together. It's a really great time.
And those 3 pitchers, obviously you, Jeevan, and also KP, what was your dynamic like? What was your relationship like together?
We were really close, actually. We did a lot of pitcher dates where the 3 of us would just go out for food or ice cream or something like that. We'd hang out. We always had each other's backs. One of us through game 1, we'd talk in between games and be like, hey, this is what I saw with the batters. This is what you might want to do. We were just always really helping each other out, really close, really great friendship. And we're all still pretty close today.
Great. You also got some chances to hit during your time as a Bobcat. How do you balance practicing, pitching versus hitting, perhaps?
I put in a lot of time for both, actually. A lot of, especially in the off season, a lot of time, extra time hitting, just going to the hitting facility, getting a lot of reps, and then obviously pitching too. I'd be in between pitching and hitting. I'd be in there 4 or 5 times a week, just getting extra reps, And then in practice in the season, we would do these live hitting, pitching practices where I'd end up doing both. I'd pitch for a little bit, hit for a little bit, and, really just split practices up that way, kind of.
Great. And then last year, obviously the team was off to a very strong start. And unfortunately, then obviously the season got shut down. I mean, if you want to take us back, how, when you were in Florida and you weren't going to play anymore, what was going through your mind? How did you stay focused throughout the long off season before this year?
that was a really devastating week. We were having such a great time in Florida, and then to be sent home was really crushing. So coming into this season, I knew that like nothing is guaranteed, so you have to make everything count. So that really pushed me to work hard in the off season.
And then, memorable games for you during your time as a Bobcat. Obviously, this past weekend has to be up there, but what were some other memorable games for you?
I think last year throwing a complete game, one hitter, throwing a no hitter, obviously up there. Like, freshman year when we beat Tufts, KP pitched her heart out. She did so great, and the team really had her back. Like, that was such a memorable win. Tufts is a great team, and we really battled hard to win that.
Yeah, and during your time, the Bobcats have beaten every team in your division at least once, including Bowdoin there a couple of years back as well. But I mean, what was it like competing in the NESCAC for you? I mean, obviously it's a very high level competition, isn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely a big change of pace for me. I went to high school in Vermont. You don't see really that level of competition. And then even just the difference between non-conference play and conference play is huge. Like, the NESCAC is so talented, and I really appreciated playing such good competition because it only makes you better.
Great. What was maybe your favorite part of being on the Bates softball team? What did you enjoy the most about it?
Honestly, just our team time. Our team is so close and so fun. Like, our time in the locker room was always so fun, or like our trips to Florida, just hanging out, like doing stuff together on the weekends. I love my teammates so much. They're so fun, all so close. And yeah, I think that's been my favorite part about Bates softball.
And then there's 5 seniors, obviously, for the Bobcats. And so as a senior class, what's the dynamic like? And then what were you trying to maybe impart on some of the younger players? Because they haven't had, even the sophomores, right, haven't had that much experience so far.
Well, we really split up the leadership this year as a kind of group of leaders instead of having captains, because we all lead so differently and in very important ways. I guess our biggest task this year was to let the underclassmen know we're totally here for them. We want to support them. A lot of people didn't really have much experience on the team. We were just kind of trying to prepare them to take on leadership roles going into the future.
Well, I mean, any other thoughts you wanted to share about this past weekend and the game you pitched against the Bantams we haven't gotten to talk about?
I just want to say that I'm really proud of my team. We really turned things around between games. This season we kind of struggled a bit with timely hitting, and it finally all clicked in the second game. We had 10 hits, no errors. It really just finally all came together, and I'm just so proud of everyone for battling through all the adversity, like our 2-week lockdown, injuries. People were put all over the field in places where they had never played before because we didn't have our full team. We would play 4 games in a weekend with 3 pitchers, just a lot going against us, but we really stuck through it all and gave it our all. And I'm just really proud of the team.
Great. Payton Buxton, thank you so much for joining the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
The golf teams competed at NESCAC Event No. 2, and first-year Alex Voigt-Shelley impressed again for the women, finishing tied for 11th among 28 golfers. Overall, Voigt-Shelley's performances over the 2 weeks was good enough for second-team All-NESCAC honors. On the men's side, senior captain Preston Haugh pulled off a dramatic turnaround from a week ago. After not even contributing to the team scoring in the first NESCAC event, Haugh won the second NESCAC event with an even par 72 at Legends Golf Club in South Hadley, Massachusetts. Overall, the Bates men's golf team finished in 7th at NESCAC Event No. 2, 4 strokes out of 4th place. And for winning medalist honors in his final event as a Bobcat, Preston Haugh is our male Bobcat of the week. What was the big difference between one week to another for you think?
In all honesty, it was mostly off the tee and putting, but mostly off the tee. First week, I don't even know the last time I shot in the 90s, but I was just always in the trees, and they were pretty dense. So you go and look for it, and even if you play a provisional ball, if you go to look for your other one and find it, you have to play it. So I'd go and find my first ball and go into these trees, and it's this soggy, muddy stuff. It's really dense. You'd have a weird, awkward swings, and it would just take me multiple shots to get out in the first place. And then I'm already, well behind and really not looking at a par save there. So that was really what, kind of put me in the dumps in the first week.
But then this past week, I mean, you mentioned off the tee, drives were finding the fairway, it sounds like.
Yeah. I hit, I think 13 fairways. I only missed 2. and it was because I ran through them actually. It wasn't bad. I missed them in fine places, which is really all you're looking for, just good misses. Last week I just was not finding misses that were helping me out at all. So really that was the big difference maker for me.
And what about the hole? There was a hole that you got a 10 on last week, and then you birdied it this week. I mean, I don't know if you want to relive the 10, but maybe what about that particular hole? A dramatic difference, obviously. It was a par 5, I believe, right?
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking about that hole all week because I hit driver the first week and tugged it just a little bit to the left, and it carried this bunker and like skipped forward into the trees, and I went to look for it. And I found it, and it was only 2 feet into the trees, but there were all these branches all over the place. You know, it was like really soggy and muddy and just leaves all over. And it took me 4 shots to get out, and I ended up having to punch backwards, and I had this weird hanging lie over my, like, probably like at my waist. I was swinging at my waist. So ended up hitting one down towards the green and then chipped up and like 4-putted or 3-putted, some like ridiculous number that was just a total domino effect. But then this past week, it was actually a pretty wide fairway. It looked much wider the second time I saw it, which is nice. And I hit my first drive down the fairway, and then on the second hole, I again hit it right where I was looking. So I was feeling pretty good with my driver. I was debating hitting 3-wood all week, so I just sort of said, as long as I don't miss left, I'm pretty okay with this, because it would feedback off the right slope for me. So that's what I did, and I almost got there in 2. I got kind of a soft bounce. I was like right side of the fairway, but I got kind of a soft bounce off my second shot, and I would have ran up to the green, but little chip and a putt, and golf was easy.
Excellent. Looking at the team as a whole, obviously, as a senior captain, it must be nice to see the first year get their first experience in a NESCAC event. What was it like seeing what they were able to do?
Oh, I'm so proud of them. We have such a good base for just our freshmen coming up and like making a good program, and just they're all really solid. They're just a really good group of kids, and I think everybody was able to contribute to the score. I think we got a bunch of people shooting in the 70s and potential low 70s once they get more college experience. I'd say it's just a good group to have coming up into the Bates College golf team. I'm just looking forward to see how they progress, because they have a lot of potential.
Excellent. Now, so even par for you, which was good enough to be first place, was this a particularly difficult course, or is even par typically something that's going to get you top 5 at this level, you think?
I'd say even par is probably going to be pretty solid on any course around in the tournaments we're playing. It's going to get you pretty far up there. Someone's going to have a good round to, really beat that, which happens, but like that's pretty solid. I guess it wasn't for me. It was a pretty short course. So I knew if I was going to drive it well, I was going to have a lot of short irons in, and that's like my biggest strength is my short irons and wedges. So when I was hitting the ball well and into the fairway, into places where I can actually score, I was putting the ball really close, and that was really a difference maker for me. As long as I wasn't struggling with my driver, I was able to really score. If you were missing, it wasn't fun, because there were a lot of places that probably should have been staked off as hazards, but they just weren't. They were just, if you couldn't find your ball, it was lost, or if you found it was in the trees, you couldn't take a drop, and you ended up having to kind of duff it out. So if you found yourself off, it was dangerous for a big number, at least what I found. So yeah, damage control was kind of hard if you missed, but if you were driving it well, you had a lot of chances to score.
Where would you rank this among rounds of golf you've played? I mean, is this near the top? You got first, and so that's obviously huge. Is that your first time being a medalist at Bates, I think?
Yeah. First time being a medalist here. Definitely, it was definitely one of my best ball striking rounds I've ever had. I was just hitting it extremely well. Wasn't really missing any shots badly. My misses were fine, which is exactly what you want. If it's really about your misses. If your misses are okay, then you can always manage. And my good shots they were really good. I had like 3 separate. Well, I guess the chip on the par 5, I almost holed, and then there were 2 other holes that I put it to like 2 feet, 1.5 feet. And another one was actually number 11. I think I made a double or a triple the week prior to, and I birdied it. I put it to like this far, and it was like a really weird, wonky driving hole that just was not appealing to the eye. So I was very happy with that one. But yeah, really good ball striking. One of my best rounds off the tee, I'd say. I'm very confident now. I just wasn't really expecting a miss if it was going to happen.
Did you like having a week between rounds, if you will, I guess, because they do combine the scores and everything? I mean, was that a good thing? I mean, because normally this is kind of different this year, right?
I didn't mind it. There's always kind of a nice, it's always been kind of nice to be able to stay over and I guess have that experience with the team. But
right.
I guess if I were to pick, I'd probably have wanted the 2 days just because we wouldn't have to make the big trek every, early in the morning. That was kind of a drag, but I don't mind 1-day tournaments. They're all right. What was weird about this week is actually I got my COVID vaccine.
Oh.
I got my COVID vaccine on Saturday, so I was like kind of feeling it. It was not
first or second dose.
Second dose.
Oh, so you were playing right after you got your second dose.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So I was like very lethargic, like kind of like tired, just all kind of dead. Really, my arm was sore. I was, they say beware the sick golfer, and I guess it's kind of a testament to that.
That's interesting. So you weren't even feeling, you obviously were not feeling, because I've had 2 doses as well, and after that second dose was not feeling well. I don't know if I could have played a round of golf. I can't play a round of golf when I'm healthy. I don't know about after. But I mean,
it was definitely weird. I was nervous going up there, like, especially the night before. Like, is this gonna like hit me tomorrow as I'm playing? But once I got out in the fresh air and started kind of getting the blood flowing, it was fine. It really wasn't too bad, except for the soreness in the arm. But yeah, kind of leading up to it, I was a little nervous, thinking like, what am I going to feel like? What's it gonna do to me?
So why do they say beware the sick golfer? I'm curious about. You've heard that.
It's just kind of a funny sort of saying that they have, and for some reason, there's some phenomenon in golf where someone who comes out there not feeling too well or just not for some reason at their best tends to have some incredible round. They tend to do very well. It's just a weird phenomenon.
And clearly was backed up this past weekend. So
exactly, yeah, exactly.
I'm curious, when did you find out you actually won the event? Like when you learned that?
I was feeling pretty good after our last guy came in, because there was another player who was, or maybe our second to last player. There was a guy in his group who had a pretty good round going, and he finished like eagle birdie. So I was like, all right, well, that might have derailed me, because I knew I had a good round in relation to the field. It was also a pretty hard day. It was windy and started raining. So the greens got slower. I wasn't really sure when we left. So then I took a nap and I woke up, and I had kept that first place that I'd kind of been watching. So they had officially posted it after I took a nap.
There you go. Good thing to wake up to. Well, any other thoughts you wanted to share about the round, or obviously if you're being a senior, any other thoughts you want to share about your time as a Bobcat golfer?
One interesting thing about the round that I had gotten it to 2 under at that par 5, and I almost got it to 3 on the next hole, and then I hit one into a bunker on the short par 3. I just wrong club choice. I left a little short and went into the bunker, and the bunker had a lot of rocks in it, and you're allowed to move the rocks, but my ball came to rest on the back of another one. I guess there was a rock underneath it, so if I would have moved it, it would have moved the ball, and so I couldn't. So I was thinking, I'll just take the rock with it. I'll just kind of swing it and like see what happens. It could do anything, but I just need to get it out of the bunker. I take a swing at this rock, and this rock was huge. I don't know how it was buried in this bunker, or how they thought that was okay to play with, but my ball hardly got out. It was still in the rough, hardly got out. I took out this rock that was a large rock the size of a small rock. And it yeah, and then I three putted, made a double bogey. I was back at even, and then I three putted the next hole, and I was like, all right, I need to keep it together. So I was fighting par the whole day after that, which I was really trying to grind to get it back to under par. But in terms of just being a Bates golfer, it's just awesome to have kind of my last tournament finish on a really high note. I've sort of always felt that I could have and should have scored better while I've been playing here. I mean, I've had a few good scores out there, but like nothing that I really felt was indicative of how I was kind of playing overall, or like just my potential in general. So this is nice to get out there, kind of having a mental trophy case.
Preston Haugh, our male Bobcat of the week. Thank you so much for joining the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Appreciate it.
In track and field, the Bobcats impressed for the second straight week against rivals Colby and Bowdoin. On the women's side, senior Elise Strauss hit a personal record in the javelin throw for the second time in as many weeks, posting a winning throw of 117 feet 8 inches on her sixth and final attempt of the day. Strauss's throw vaulted her from 7th place to 3rd on Bates' all-time performance list in the event. Junior Elise Lambert turned in a huge performance as well, moving up the all-time Bates list in the 800 meters to 4th place with her time of 2 minutes, 14.12 seconds. The time ranks her among the top 20 in Division III in the event, despite Bates' shortened schedule. And Elise Lambert is our female Bobcat of the week.
I think a big theme this season is just appreciating every opportunity that we have. So this meet, like the one we had previously, it was just really exciting and really fun to be able to get out on the track and just be able to do what we do. Really, like, just, I think for a lot of people too, we sort of are going into these meets with like very low expectations, just trying to see what we can do given our circumstances. And so it's always a pleasant surprise when you're able to have a good race, despite everything that that's sort of been thrown at us this whole year and a half. So yeah, I'm just really happy that I got the opportunity to race.
For the throwers, the masks aren't a big deal, but for the runners, it can be quite difficult. So for you, when you're running 800, I'm sure it's difficult. 1500, you also run maybe even more. Tell me about how you're dealing with that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to breathe, obviously. But it's also, you don't really realize that you're wearing a mask in the moment. You get into your race and you're so focused on the race that the mask sort of becomes an afterthought. The biggest concern I have with masks is just, I'm always scared that it's going to sort of slip below my nose and I'm going to get disqualified, or I don't know. So it's all about making minor adjustments as you run. It's not too big of a burden. You kind of forget that it's there when you're into a race, but yeah, it's a small concession to have to wear a mask in order to race. And I'm willing to comply.
That's a new wrinkle, though. If the mask falls below your nose, they might disqualify you. How do they even judge that? Because, it might briefly, does that have to be pretty blatant? How has it been so far? Yeah,
I think a lot of people have also struggled with this. So I think they're more or less, the officials are kind of lenient with it. We've really just been told, it's expected that if your mask does fall, that you pull it back up. So I think that they're really only disqualifying people who actually pull their masks below their chin, or right. You can see their whole smile, people who are very obviously not following the rules. But I think as long as, if you're an athlete, if you're trying your best to sort of work with this hand that we've been dealt, I think that officials sort of can cut you some slack. But
Sure. And then for you personally, the 800 and the 1500, how are you approaching training for that? Because obviously, NCAA's, it sounds like, Bates will be trying to participate in those this year. So what should be your approach there between those two races?
Yeah, I mean, it's been difficult. Again, we're really just focusing on being able to race at this point. So yeah, I don't know if I've thought much about my goals going forward, or what I'm working on. Really just trying to get the most out of every workout, the most out of every practice. I'm sort of focusing on just having fun and being with my teammates and not really sweating the small stuff after such a troublesome year. Yeah. And I sort of going forward, just sort of seeing like how I could perform. I am, of course, looking to qualify for nationals now at this point. And I am sort of looking towards the future a little bit more now that we have a couple of races under our belts. But yeah, it's really been about having fun, enjoying our time as a team. You really just learn to appreciate all the small things so much more when you're torn away from them for such a long time.
Yeah. What's your favorite part about being back with the team? What's been the best part about that?
Just having practices with people, running with people, just being with my friends again. I love my team so much. They're my best friends. They're my group. Everyone is such a character and I love them all so much. And so anytime that I get to spend with them, I appreciate it. And they're just so supportive every step of the way. Everyone really is in it together. And we're all just in this having a good time.
Then you only ran the 800 this past weekend. So tell me a little bit about what you observed in other races the Bobcats participated in. What were some cool things you saw?
I mean, it's just especially seeing the freshman races. It's really exciting. Like we didn't get a cross country season with them, not being able to see anyone race indoor. And so it's just really exciting to see people again, just like do what they love. And especially like watching seniors on our team who I think they're just like appreciative that they get this final chance. And it's been a good time, especially like this past meet, a lot of people improved over their first meet. And so like, I know Vanessa, she ran 20 seconds faster in her 1500. Like that's a huge chunk of time. And like, just appreciating how far, like how much of improvement that is I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. It's fun watching everyone else have good races too, because again, like a lot of us I don't think have expectations, and a lot of people aren't really giving themselves credit for what they're able to do. And so it's fun to watch people be surprised by their races and watch people succeed despite everything we're going through. So.
Great. Any thoughts on the meet coming up this weekend at Tufts here?
Just looking forward to another opportunity to race. Just really appreciating every chance that we have to just put it all out on the track, and sort of running every race like it's your last it's kind of been the underlying theme here. So just excited to be on the track again.
Excellent. Elise Lambert, our female Bobcat of the week. Thank you so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
In men's track and field, senior All-American John Rex moved further up the storied ranks of Bates hammer throwers, launching a personal record throw of 191 feet and 6 inches to highlight Saturday's tri-meet with Bowden and Colby. Rex's mark moves him into 9th place on the team's all-time performance list.
Ultimately, I think you have to be grateful for the opportunities that you do have, and you have to sort of seize those opportunities while they're there and in front of you. And I think that's something that we as people struggle with, and also are victorious in conquering every day. And this whole year, I mean, I'm very grateful to have PR'd this past Saturday, and it wasn't something maybe a month ago when we were in lockdown that I really foresaw happening. I was up looking at the nationals lists, updating them, and it was quite sad to look at the list and not see myself, somewhere in the mix. And a lot of these people as well who are across the country are on the nationals list, this track and field statistics rankings that we use called TFERS. They appeared on there, and they had 4 or 5 meets, and to only have had 2 meets and get a PR out of it, I felt very grateful and very happy about that and pleased. And I kind of went into this whole year training, and there was really no promise of having a season. I sort of found motivation elsewhere to keep training through the uncertainty, and it just feels very fulfilling to have it pay off and have to see some results. So it was awesome.
Excellent. So yeah, give us an update on that, because I know the track. Some folks will be going to Tufts this weekend. Don't know if that's you or not, but are you in a good spot for nationals right now? How's that kind of going from your perspective?
Yeah, Tufts this week. I think it's going to be a bit of a smaller group, just because of capacity limits and So we have to start narrowing down people by events and whatnot. It's definitely a more abbreviated season than usual. So things are happening very abruptly and very last minute, and it's just kind of how everything has been with sports, because there's so much work that goes into organizing it. And yeah, I'm ranked 5th right now in the country in D3, which I think is one of the highest rankings I've been, which is really awesome when I think about the circumstance.
Right.
It's funny, it's ironic because then all the odds are stacked against you, and I still think there's a lot more there, and I'll be competing at Tufts, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I did, it's bittersweet because I had a lot of really good practice throws in that week, and I didn't really put a throw together in the meet, which is why it's exciting and encouraging to still have PR'd even with a throw that I didn't really put together all that well. So going forward, definitely just going to corner and focus on competing well, and also encouraging my teammates to do better as well, because there's a lot of really good things happening, and even in the face of adversity. So it's really exciting to see. And one of my teammates, Liam, who's on the Bobcast last week, he just keeps PRing, keeps pushing me, and I love that. That's something that I had when D-Ray was around and I was a freshman. It was really great to have a teammate that was beating you in events and pushing you, and I think I attribute a lot of my success later on to him. And Liam now is doing the same thing, and I'm super proud of him. And it's everything just everything comes together around this time if you just stick to the training and stick to the lifts, and sort of how I've been doing things in the program for a long time. So it's super encouraging, super exciting. Makes me very proud to be a Bates thrower and see what happens later on as well when I'm graduated and moved on beyond Bates, but always have it in my heart.
Great. Well, you took my next question almost out of my mouth about Liam, because we did have him on, as you mentioned. He's a sophomore. It was his first outdoor meet the other week. And how have you kind of taken him under your wing as a senior, as a leader on this team?
Yeah, sure. Liam came in his freshman year. He was similar to me in the recruiting sense, like not really full-on recruit, and I think sometimes those are the best ones because they got a little chip on their shoulder. It doesn't really. I always tell them, and him too. I tell all the guys, it doesn't really matter where you start, but it's really about where you finish, because sometimes all those kids that had all the high school wins and all the glory and all the popularity, they get bored of it and they burn out in a sense. And I think that having longevity as a college athlete is even more important than having the natural talent or the experience, because Coach Fresh with Coach Fresh's help you get that experience and you get that work in. And Liam has been super pleasing to work with in the throws. Super coachable, super hard, very, very hardworking, extremely hardworking, very committed. He takes himself very seriously in a great way. And he really doesn't make excuses for himself. He just worked super hard over the quarantine. It's just really motivating to have teammates like him who just, in addition to all the other guys as well, you got John, Jacob, James, Smitty, it's just a great squad. And we all get along so well and just have a great time at practice. And I think that really helps a lot as well, especially during times like these. And, going back to what I was saying about Liam, he's worked really, really hard, and he's made ends meet when the odds weren't in his favor. So, and I think it's showing now, and he's just PRing, and I really hope that he gets the opportunity to qualify for nationals as well. I think he's not too far out. He's within distance, and I think it can be done. I mean, there have been crazier things that have happened in the program, so I totally believe in him, and I totally think he can get there, and that would be really great to share that moment with him as well at nationals and be there together. And yeah, it's really exciting.
Excellent. Well, if you don't mind, let's take us back to last year. You were at indoor nationals ready to compete, right? And things just shut down. From that point forward, how do you approach things? How do you go about continuing to stay sharp? How do you kind of deal with it almost from a mental standpoint? Also, knowing that was kind of taken away, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think my initial reaction was to just train through it and take it as a challenge. It was a very big challenge that obviously I mentally sort of relapsed in a sense after just ignoring it for so long. There were moments where I sort of came back down and realized that, what had been, what had not been, and what had been taken away in a sense by the exogenous effects of the pandemic. And there were hard moments. There are a couple tears in there, but I think it just makes those moments so much sweeter because I still trained, and I actually in a way it's sort of that pandemic back in March, the big shock of the pandemic and going in lockdown, it sort of gave me the time to revamp and restructure how I train, and also my nutrition and how I think about finding my sort of ideal body or physique for my event. And and it allowed me to really revamp and focus on the things that I never really paid attention to. And I ended up, there were some moments where I was kind of uncertain about whether it was a good decision, but I think because at one point I had lost I had lost a decent amount of weight, and then I was trying to build back muscle, and it was a little different throwing some of the other events, especially the shot, just because I was leaner and not used to throwing with my transformed body in a sense. But I think that's just all the more reason why you should always trust your instinct and trust your gut, because it's moments like these which make it really sweet. And I'm just really grateful and really excited that of just the power of fate, and just really having trust in what you're doing, and knowing that's finding your own purpose in it, and knowing it's for a reason. And I don't give up easily. It's kind of hard to knock me off the plank. So I am equally as grateful as I am thrilled to be competing, and I've been anticipating this. So even though it wasn't certain, I said, well, if it does happen, I'm gonna wish I trained. So let's train. Let's just do it. And I'm also a senior. I'm a captain. I have to be there for the younger guys. If they didn't have me there, it would just be different, that's very disloyal in a sense, in my opinion. I didn't have any particular reason to not keep training. I didn't have, I wrote my thesis in the fall. I didn't really have much going on this semester. And it just made me that much more excited to leave as much of, my leadership, or leave them with as many lessons, in a way, leave them with as many lessons and experiences as I could before I graduate. I think that's super important. I mean, I owe a lot of things to D-Ray, and I just think about that. I wouldn't really be the same person in a good way. I wouldn't be the same person without D-Ray and his mentorship. And I am him now. I am a senior, and so it's important for me, because there's just so much potential in that squad as well. There's just so much untapped potential, and some potential that's being realized. And it's funny because I was talking to D-Ray the other day, and he was saying, I was showing him some videos of the guys, and now some training videos, and just updating him on what our squad looks like. And he was like, oh my gosh, these guys like, Johnny, like you better throw farther. These guys, you're gonna catch up to you if you don't. Like he's like, you need to set the bar higher. Like these guys are in way better positions than Dira and I were when we were first years. Like they just came in with more experience, they came in with more expertise, and they're slowly building towards something that I think is going to be really great in a new era of the program. And I'm very excited for that. And I will definitely be paying attention and being vigilant as they progress through their careers.
Terrific. John Rex, thank you so much as always for joining us on the Bobcast. Looking forward to seeing how the season pans out going forward. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good one.
The rowing teams competed against their opponents in the NESCAC East over the weekend, with the women winning all 4 of their races and the men winning 3 of their 4 races. Both teams now advance to the NESCAC championships, and head coach Peter Steenstra joins the Bobcast for a preview. Well, the rowing teams competing in the NESCAC championships this upcoming weekend on the Malden River, and we have head coach Peter Steenstra with us here on the Bobcast. And Coach, I know you race on the Malden River, pretty much every spring, but you've really gotten used to it this year. What's it been like going to the same place each and every week to compete?
Well, first, we're very, very fortunate to be able to compete at all. What's different for rowing as compared to some of the other sports is the way that things were set up. Each of the campuses was like its own little bubble. And so we could go from bubble to bubble and keep everyone safe along the way. The problem with rowing is that there's literally one school that owns a body of water, and that's Princeton University. So no one else has their own piece of water that they can claim as their own. And the way that Tufts is set up on that they have a little tributary that leads into the Charles. It makes for a perfect little piece of water that is safe. There's zero traffic. There's very good conditions that, all 3 weekends that we've raced there so far, it's been blowing pretty hard. And a lot of other places, they're not able to get the racing done. But we've had, very, very good racing conditions. So between that and the fact that Tufts is able to host has been really, a great thing for us, because it allows us to even have these races. So we can't thank them enough for taking that all on. And you're certainly not going to get any complaints from me about the race course and how there's a couple little turns or a bridge or whatever the imperfections that there are of this 2K course. That the fact that we get to do it at all is a real treat.
Wait, so Coach, you tell me that Bates does not own the Androscoggin River?
Nope. Absolutely not.
How has the training been on the Scog though this year?
It's been, it's been a windy spring for everyone. So we've been blown off the water a couple times. We've been out there in less than ideal conditions, but we've managed to get some good work done. But it's been windy. I think it's been windy everywhere. Quite frankly.
Well, and then the wind seems to be changing. I'm looking at the times on some of these races. They're dramatically different. Has it been shifting throughout the day?
Yeah, it is a floating start. So you can't really say exactly where the start line is. It could be a boat length up or a boat length down, as the aligning judge is trying to get the 2 boats lined up just right. It could be a variation on where that start line actually is. But the other thing is that because of the prevailing winds are kind of a cross from left to right as you're going along the race course. And then there are these huge buildings right around the 1,000-meter mark that create these swirling, twirling, gusts of wind that 1 minute you're getting hit off the port side of the boat, and then the very next minute you take 5 more strokes down the course, and all of a sudden it's a 20-mile-an-hour headwind. So a lot of really inconsistent, squirrely winds like that the athletes just kind of manage, and the coxswains do a really good job of maintaining a good line and communicating with the rowers so they can maybe predict when a gust is about to hit them, and that it might be from a weird location. Like all of a sudden you're getting hit on the starboard side of the boat as opposed to the port side, and there's no explanation for it. But.
And then as a coach, I noticed obviously you shifted the lineups around quite a bit. I mean, there's some people who are locked into like the 1B and whatnot, but in terms of from a coaching perspective, what are you looking for each week in terms of making those lineups and making those adjustments? Because obviously it had been a while for the team being on the water in a competitive environment before this spring.
Yeah, even more so than that, there are people that we haven't seen row until we finally got on the water this spring. So having all these incoming first years, they're coming to us with an array of experience levels, from being very new to the sport to having sculling only to having many years of rowing. And so you put all that together and we have so little information to base it off of that we have to use the racing as part of our system for selection. The 1Vs on both sides were pretty quick for us to figure out. I had to, at the beginning of all this, I had to basically go with what we knew. And we're lucky, especially on the women's side, it's quite clear at the onset when you have 4 women that were in the varsity 8 2 years ago and the other 4 were in the JV 8 2 years ago. So we still have a boat full of people who are, national champions, and then from that point on, we go on the women's side, you go through the 2V and the 3V and the 4V, and we really have unbelievably competitive, deep, and even boats. Like we're out here doing pieces with 2V, 3V, and 4V, and the 4V will take a piece out of nowhere, and then the 3V will take a piece, and then then the 2V starts to dominate, establish their position as, hey, good work everybody, but we are the 2V kind of thing. So we have a lot of that's happening, and through it all we have to try to figure things out, and we have lingering injuries here and there, and so we kind of pop somebody into the boat and it continues to go pretty nicely.
Yeah, so for the women's 2V, I remember the first week, I think they lost to Hamilton in a race, and I texted you like, is that result accurate? Because I couldn't believe it, right? But since then, they've won the rest of their races. So what have you seen their growth in the 2V?
Yeah, well, we've had some significant lineup changes, I think, from that point of view. Now we have 3 different bodies in that boat, and then also kind of reconfiguring the lineup itself has gone well. So, having Alexa Bauerfein, who's a first year, she's one of those very skilled scholars who is going to pick up the rowing stroke pretty quickly. And so she found her way into that boat. She's a very strong person on the erg as well. So it's just a matter of that learning curve and to see what she can do with just some time in the boat. And then just this past week, for this past weekend's racing, Rosie Crawford made her way into the boat. Unfortunately, due to someone else's sort of injury on that, it's unfortunate on that end, but when you have these situations and we have to make a call, then we go with what we've got at that point.
And then the men's rowing team, they've been going toe-to-toe with Tufts each week. It seems like that's a real big battle in the 1V, hasn't it?
It's a big battle. It's fun. It's been a lot of fun. And I think it's more fun for us because we're the ones that are on the hunt. It might be a little less fun for Tufts because they're the ones that are starting to feel a lot more pressure as the weeks progress, and we're getting closer and closer to them with each of these races. But we're really looking forward to this weekend coming up because clearly we've got a tight race between Trinity and Williams on the men's side that are out there on the Western NESCAC group. And then we're just bearing down on Tufts. We're only, 2.5 seconds behind them in this race yesterday. So I think it's going to be a really exciting bracket style battle for this championship next weekend.
Well, I was going to ask, what do the men have to do in order to qualify for IRAs this week? Do they have to win? Do they have to finish second? How does that work?
No, I think that basically we've qualified at this point, being top 4 in the NESCAC.
Okay.
And all the Ivy Leagues that are kind of out of the IRA at the moment. It's not that they're fully opening the doors and saying come one, come all, but the fact that these top 4 crews are showing some really solid speed, and we still have another month to go before the IRA would happen. There's a lot of growth left to go. I'm not sure if Tufts is actually deciding whether or not they want to go to the IRA. So I think at the very least, the IRA would take 3 men's 8s from the NESCAC.
And then for the women, for NCAA is obviously the ranked number 1 right now. You obviously want the auto bid, right, with the NESCAC title, but they should be in pretty good shape also, right?
I think they're in good shape. regardless. But yeah, certainly 2 at least will come out of the NESCAC. Whether or not they take a third, it's going to just depend on what happens out there with Liberty League or anything with WPI and some of these other schools that don't have a championship to go to. So whether or not that can work out, I don't really know.
Gotcha. For the women, what are you most looking forward to seeing this weekend as they meet some of their NESCAC West opponents for the first time, right?
Yeah, well, they're looking pretty strong. We raced on 2 very different race courses. So with where they were, so the Trinity and Wesleyan and Williams and whoever I'm forgetting, Hamilton, out there in that NESCAC West, they're on that Lake Onota. It's up in the hills. It's freezing cold water, and they had a pretty stiff crosswind, but came away with some solid times. Whereas we're on this very narrow river, so we are going against a little bit of flow, and then we have a variable starting line. So it's hard to say that there's any straight comparison between the results, but and even then, the only overlap we have would be when we raced Hamilton, 3 weeks ago now, right? Or I guess Wesleyan raced Tufts 4 weeks ago. That kind of stuff is just forever ago. It's ancient history at this point. But I think either way, there's a lot of unknowns. I think it's wide open, and I think it's going to be some real good racing this weekend.
Great. Overall, how have you seen the teams adjust to this odd season we're having? Because I talked to Liza Folsom. She said, I thought we'd never get on the water again, and they did, and they have, and it's been quite a few races so far. Actually,
I'd be lying if I didn't say that I lose a little sleep the night before we travel, knowing that everything depends on not just our 43 people testing negative, but then the 43 from 3 other schools also testing negative at their various locations. And so once we get through that, of course, you're at the regatta site, and it couldn't be easier, right? To have such a small group of athletes is really manageable, and all the parents and spectators have been great to kind of keep the distance and follow the guidelines that have been in place. So that's been great. We're so grateful to just be racing. It's wonderful to just be able to get to where we are today. Hopefully we can finish everything out.
All right, Peter Steenstra, thanks so much for updating us on the rowing teams. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
In other action last week, Bates tennis teams completed their seasons with matches against Colby, with the women falling 9-love and the men falling 6-3. Overall, both teams finished their abbreviated seasons with records of 2-2. The baseball team also dropped a pair of contests to Colby, one at home on Saturday by a count of 9-4, and one on the road Sunday by a score of 12-4. But Bates gets another shot at the Mules this weekend with a road game Saturday and the second and final home game of the season Sunday at 1 p.m. Meanwhile, the track and field teams look to put up more impressive marks, this time at Tufts. And as we mentioned earlier, the rowing teams compete for the NESCAC title this weekend. We'll recap it all next time on the Bates Bobcast.